Welcome back to another Gear Up episode with Ashton Haig and a special guest today from the Daily Wolves. Trip, welcome, Trip.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure, and I'm honored to be invited.
There's a lot of Wolves stuff like with free agency. The draft happened. Free agency kind of kicked off. Where do you want to start the draft, then head into free agency? And we also got the approval from the NBA Board of Governors of A-Rod and Lori. So it's up to you. I'm cool with wherever.
Yeah. I mean, I think most recently the draft, right? I mean, quite
Right.
the turn up. I didn't expect to draft two centers of the future, but as I reflect on it, I'd love your thoughts, but I'm just excited. I'm a big believer in drafting for the future. In the moment,
Mm-hmm.
I think I got a little caught off guard in the moment, looking for maybe like someone that can help right away. But the reality is the best teams don't draft for need; they look for the long term future. So I think there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
to be optimistic with both the guys they drafted. But what were your thoughts?
Um, like, it's hard because I was thinking, I saw us drafting a center,
Hmm.
mainly because Rudy is kind of getting old.
Hmm.
Um, on his 3 year, 100 and some $1 million. Then, like, I also saw him drafting a point guard Clayton Jr. I was surprised he fell past us. That kind of shocked me a little bit.
I agree. I was shocked he was there. I was really shocked that Kasparis from Illinois was there too. I just thought him and Clayton Jr. were two guys that,
Mm-hmm.
for my money, were just really effective shooters. A lot of upside, really nice looking shots, can handle the ball. Those are two guys that I think we're going to talk about. Next time maybe I'm on in 3, 4, yeah, I guess 6 months down the line, whenever the season starts, as guys that are
Right.
contributing for their teams right away. So those are two guys I would have loved to have, but the more I dive into, Rocco and Johan, I think they're going to be really high upside centers. And
Mm-hmm.
I think because of their height and their kind of frame, it's easy to say, oh, that's Rudy Gobert, which would be a blessing defensively, but those guys, I think, offer a lot more upside, intrigue athletically and on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm a lot more excited than I was in the moment.
Right. I was kind of surprised we kind of drafted as well, just because with the money situation that the Wolves currently are in, with the Nas Reed contract extension
Hmm.
with the playoffs, and that technically is a 4 year deal because of playoffs, and then the Julius Randle contract extension with Edwards' contract, Jaden's contract. I was kind of surprised we drafted two people just because with the contract problems.
Yep. Yeah. It's that we're in a bit of a predicament with paying a
Mm-hmm.
lot of money to a handful of guys, but um, I'm optimistic that if anyone can get us out from under it, maybe a year from now. I think we're kind of in run it back mode now,
Mm-hmm.
but I think maybe in a year you look to see what you can do to maybe get off the Rudy contract and really kind of build around Ant Jaden, Nas, and hopefully Rob Dillingham.
Right. Like with the centers, they're gonna be work in progress. That what I've been also seeing. Slash with them being young, right on Edward's timeline, but kind of younger, but kind of in that same timeline as
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. I think, they went super young, but Anthony Edwards and Jaden are still really young. And I think, you know, you might even see Johan play a little bit next year, but I mean, 2 years from now, if those guys can pan out,
Hmm.
this team's going to be positioned really well for the long term.
Yeah, and with long term, like I like saw in like the playoffs, like everyone like got better, like Denver got better. The Warriors, um, arguably, um, like they're gonna have like a healthy Curry, so they're gonna like be better.
For
Um,
sure.
the Rockets got better with who they brought in with KD, um, and some other big time, like, and a couple other moves.
Yeah, it's one of those telltale signs that I keep thinking won't happen, but every year the
Hmm.
West just keeps getting better, and I'm just very hopeful with the NBA expansion in a couple of years that we can get out of the West. Oh my gosh. But maybe by
Right.
that time the West won't be as good anymore and it won't matter. But
Well,
Jesus, man, it just every year they keep getting more and more deep, you know.
right. And like before we head into like free agency, there was one team that I was kind of surprised that kind of shocked me in my own opinion
Mm-hmm.
is 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 the Suns. Like they drafted a center, then they traded for Mark Williams. I understand that just with a a vet, but two centers in a draft. That's where I'm confused. But
Yeah, I think man, I don't you have to hope. I don't know. I hope Johan with his ball handling ability.
right.
Maybe you go big and he can play the four. I mean, maybe that's crazy. But if you go big, I mean, if he is kind of who we think he is, which is not to
Hmm.
make the comparison in the slightest, but from like a skill set perspective,
Hmm.
I think his ceiling is not Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm not saying that,
Right.
but he's a guy that
Hmm.
can handle the ball and more mainly be a positionless 7-footer versus being like, oh, that's another center that is stagnant. It's almost like Nas Reed in a way where
Right.
it's like, yes, in theory, is he a 4/5? Yeah, in theory, but also he can handle the ball. He can shoot the three better than almost every guard in the NBA. Like, I mean, I like to think, obviously, because of his height, he's not
Hmm.
positionless. But I'm optimistic that he's not just like your, drop center, and like that's what it is.
Yeah, and then going into like free agency, like what you said like about Nas Reed, like and he like kind of not like comparing them, but I kind of see, but like Nas Reed could have gone anywhere else that I would kind of surprised on like the money value we got from 5 years, 125 with the play option. I think he could have gotten a lot more for that, personally.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point because I think there's both sides of the coin. I think half
Hmm.
of the Timberwolves fans think they overpaid, and half of them think they got a great deal. And so it's interesting to see that on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. But
Right.
I think at the end of the day, when you're Nas Reed, you're a six man of the year caliber player. Sure, you could start in other situations, but he's as beloved as anyone in the league. And in an era of NBA where you see guys leave a team where they have it pretty good, but they think they can go have it better somewhere else, like a larger market, etc. Nas
Hmm.
Reed is smart enough to identify that he's beloved here. He's going to
Hmm.
continue to evolve here. He's wanted here not only by the organization but by the fans, and it's just a match made in heaven. And I think yes, maybe he could have got a couple more dollars on the open market, but at $25 million a year, coming off of an extension, he's made a tremendous amount of money in his career, and he'll get the chance to make another big contract because when this one ends, he'll still be young and he can opt out. To
Hmm.
your point, after 4 years, I think he looks at this situation and says, at minimum, let me come ride this thing out for 4 more years. And if I want to leave, then I can. But realistically, he's got such a good gig here that I think he knows that, and he's smart enough to see that other players have taking risks, leaving teams where they had a good situation, and it doesn't always work out. I'm not saying it wouldn't. I think it would. He's a great player, but I think he saw this situation and said, "Let me just keep riding this out. They're willing to pay me, and I love it here." So I think it worked out for both parties.
Right. And he could have got probably way more money than 25 million,
Mm-hmm.
and probably arguably a starting role.
Yeah, yeah. That's the other piece. What's the starting role worth to you? Because I like to think with Rudy
Hmm.
getting a bit older, I still think Rudy's going to have a huge role here. But I mean, there's an
Hmm.
opportunity in certain matchups for Nas to start, and starter. Yeah, sure, but I mean, if you can get starter minutes, I think that's the end game. And again, I think
Hmm.
this isn't necessarily all about next year. I don't think I'm shocking anyone by saying this, but I think, a year from now, you might be looking at a Rudy list Timberwolves, and I think that may
Hmm.
open the door for Nas Reed to start.
Like I agree with you. Then whatever we do with the Julius contract, that's another big piece to it.
Yeah. I love what we saw from Julius in moments. Certainly at points in the playoffs,
Hmm.
he was great. At points in the playoff times, he was terrible. But Julius is a guy that he seemed to embrace Minnesota pretty well. I think he was ahead of the curve when you look at what you expected from Dante DiVincenzo. I think you obviously expect two far different, performances on a nightly basis from the two, just based off contract and stature. But I think
Hmm.
you saw it from Dante. He struggled to get acclimated a bit. I'm expecting a big year from him next year. But I think you saw Julius after that injury really lock in and really play some incredible basketball. And that's the guy that was drafted in the top 5 out of Kentucky for a
Right.
reason. And I think there's reason to be optimistic. And I think, you're looking at a situation where he wants to be here. He loves Chris Finch, seems to fit in the locker room really well. But it's another scenario where that's a contract a year from now. If there's an opportunity to go get someone, I mean, you probably have those conversations. But at 30 million a year for a all-star caliber player in today's NBA, that seems like kind of the going rate.
Right. And like plus with like like when we made that like I know like this happened like last year like everyone was surprised that we got Julius, but like now I'm like Tim was looking for the future like last year when we made that move with um the Knicks to get underneath the second apron with
Yep.
with Cat's like big contract, so he was a step ahead of everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're two or so years away from having a tremendous amount of flexibility. In the short term, we're right there with the second apron, so we didn't get to do a ton in free agency, at least not yet. But I think, 2 years from now, to your point with the cat trade, that's where the flexibility will really start to kind of creep in. Because even with
Hmm.
the Julius contract, the Rudy contract, 2 years from now, those are expiring. So, I mean, the flexibility. I mean, he's playing the short term game with a team that's off back to back Western Conference finals, but he's also playing the long term game, to your point, by getting off that cat contract. And I think, really the fruits of the labor from what Tim Conley is trying to do here is going to be felt not just right now and next year with a good roster, but really 2, 3 years down the line, especially if Rob Dillingham is who we think he could be.
Right, and kind of like what you're saying, uh, and like kind of what you're also saying with like the short game, long game. Edwards is only 23.
Yep.
Like, like what you said, like in like the 2 year like window, he's
Hmm.
only gonna be 25. Then having all this like cap flexibility, then you can actually go out and
Yep.
sign. Like I'm kind of expecting to keep Jaden Nas part of the core. Then you can go out and sign. Maybe I'm not saying a, like a Giannis Joker. Maybe like when CJ McCollum was in his prime in Portland or something like that.
Yeah. And I think that's what it's all about. And it might not
Hmm.
even be via a sign. It might be a via trade, just understanding the dynamics of trying to get someone to come to Minnesota. I think their focus is changing the narrative there that free agencies do want to come here. But worst case, I think they'll be in a position to acquire someone as well. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and plus and with like free agency, like losing not what kind of that was sad, but like when you look at the bigger picture, like you cannot pay that contract with the with the two contracts that you just signed
100%.
in not like Nadrid and Julius. So that was sad, but here's I was kind of surprised we signed Joe Ingles a little bit.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I love the guy, but that's a lot of money for someone who has a pretty much a 0% chance of playing. But at the end of the day, I trust him and Chris at their
Right.
at face value that like he must have a major impact, in the locker room.
Right.
And I think he's obviously totally different positions, but a guy like that I think has an impact pretty greatly on Johan and Rocco. That of course different
Hmm.
positions, but I think overseas guys like Joe Ingles that are coming to a whole new league. Joe Ingles is the perfect example of what that experience can look like and how to carry yourself and also how to prepare like a pro. So I believe that we won't necessarily see it on the court, but I think it'll help players. I mean, I guess we will see it on the court in theory, not from him, but I think he'll have a big impact in some capacity, kind of behind the scenes.
Right. And like with that contract, I would kind of like I'm not. I was a little bit surprised because then I saw Titus going for like cheap, and I'm like, we needed a solid point guard, so I was like, saw Titus go for like the cheap. I'm like, we could have used that to help get Titus,
Mm-hmm.
or, or just upgrade the point guard position, like because like I think the point guard is where we're gonna probably struggle the most. Like with like Mike Conley being like 36 years old, I think then I get we have Dante, he can run some point, Edward can run some point. Then you have Rob Rob that like he's still developing. Like
Mm-hmm.
and we traded up, but if like injuries like do happen with like Mike Conley, then like then Dante goes, for example, if Mike Conley gets injured, like then Dante is the one that Rob is added to that. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
but
Yep. Yep. I
does
think.
that does
Yeah.
that kind of make sense where I would
I.
kind of going?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes complete sense. I think the thing is any of those point guards that we can
Hmm.
afford, which is probably on a minimum contract, there's probably a reason they're available. One, they're coming off injury. One, they had a
Right.
bad year. Those guys want to go. So they, I venture to guess they want to go where they can get the most minutes. I don't want to speak for any of them, but I imagine winning is important to all of them. But opportunity to
Hmm.
get another chance at a big contract is equally as important because this is their livelihood. So you have
Hmm.
to ask yourself, do I want to go to a team where I can be either the starting point guard or a really, first or second man off the bench, or do I want to potentially go be the third point guard behind a guy they invested the seventh pick overall in Rob Dillingham, Mike Conley, who's a proven veteran. And
Hmm.
there might be games I get a lot of DNPs. I don't play. So from their perspective, when they're on that minimum, I totally understand that they have to say, you know what, I got to go have a big year somewhere and then get paid again. So uh, I think that's kind of where I have to imagine where a lot of those guys are at. It's not that Minnesota isn't attractive from a winning perspective. It's just unattractive to a guy who has to take a really cheap deal to prove himself again because there might not be that chance to prove himself.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I would. thinking like because we needed like a point guard.
Totally.
And like hits the last like feel um like I was like 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 with like the Nuggets got better with all their guys, and like I honestly think the West got a lot more harder in a way.
Hmm.
Then the Lakers got a center. Then yeah, it's crazy. And I don't know if like I don't know if the Wolves have a do they have a full team?
That's a good question. Um, I think they like to. It really comes down to, in my opinion, the point guard position. I don't think that's a
Hmm.
hot take, but can Mike Conley recreate some of that magic of just being efficient? I don't think he's going to be a guy that
Hmm.
gets you 20 points a night, but can he not turn the ball over? Can he make good passes, play really good team ball, which he's done his whole career? And then really, you're really, and I think they should. I think they should roll Rob Dillingham out there as the starting point guard and see what you have, because there's no doubt in my mind he has all the talent in the world. I loved him coming out, and that was me loving him coming out without even considering him as a possibility for the Timberwolves. He's an electric point guard. Of course, he's undersized, but he's a freak athlete. He can make some things happen, and I'm not. Listen, half the stars in the league don't play defense, so it's not. We can't say, oh, well, what about the defense? Listen, that's why you put really good defenders like Jaden and Rudy around him, because half the stars in the league don't play effective defense. So just because he's small, it's popular to say he's going to play bad defense. Sure, but I'm looking at a guy that can explode to the rim, uh, make good passes, make 3-point shots. And if you look at the plus minus, he was effective in a small role for us with some of our key guys. So, to your question, it really just depends, I think, on Mike continuing to be who he was, but more importantly, Rob Dillingham really needs to take a big leap. And I don't even say big leap, because in small moments he looked good, but I think it also requires Chris Finch to have faith in a young point guard to run this team and run this program, and partner with Anthony Edwards to really play effective offensive basketball.
Right. And like effective, like what you're saying, like this team, like I think like they could win. Like I'm not saying like win a championship in like the next few years, but I totally see it like it's either coming soon or after the 2 year win like window when we open up the cap flexibility with
Mm-hmm.
like it's gonna be fun and a lot of um a lot of moments and any other wolf stuff um about a little bit of A-Rod and like with like they also approved that A-Rod and Lori that was not expected. The only shocker that I would say was probably the time that it was dragged out.
Yeah, I figured it would drag out, but at the end of the day, I'm
Hmm.
excited. I think those are two guys that, well, first of all, A-Rod played at a high level for an elite organization. The Yankees back in the George Steinbrenner era, really, and they
Hmm.
still are a world class organization. But it's different sport. But he knows what it not only he knows what it takes to win behind the scenes, and so I'm expecting the continuance of a world class facility at Mayo Clinic Square. I think
Hmm.
every little small thing that makes the culture better, from like traveling to just state of the art appliances. I just continue to expect those things to evolve at a high rate, and I'm really optimistic. Just that those guys understand what it means to run a company, especially like Lori, if in a
Hmm.
modern era, what it takes to make your employees happy. At the end of the day, they play basketball for a living. There are employees of the Timberwolves and in the NBA. They want to have fun at work. They want to show up
Hmm.
to an office that's enjoyable to spend their time at. So I'd love your thoughts, but I'm incredibly optimistic. Just if nothing else, about the culture and the facilities and what they're going to bring to really create a world class organization.
To answer your question, like I started watching like when Cat was um like a little bit before Cat, and I could tell the difference when
Hmm.
before A Rod, like this art, like the Wolves were playing, but it looked like they were just out there just because they had to be out there.
Right.
Like now after A Rod, like you can tell. Even going back when Cat was still on our team, but when A Rod Lori were kind of they bought the team, but we didn't know. But we kind of knew. But like with all the debates, like how more invested all the players were, like right when they bought the team.
For sure.
Seeing seeing that from the higher ups is a lot, means a lot over someone that's running the team, but just there um to run the team.
Yep. I agree. Very exciting times ahead,
Mhm.
for sure.
Right. Then like I saw like reports like before they settled like who's gonna win, but we kind of figured already of KG was expected to join like the front office. Cannot wait to see that happen. That's like what do you say, like 6 7 years in the making, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard a lot on it lately, so I'm just trying to be cautiously optimistic. But I have no
Right.
doubt if anyone's going to get them back in the fold, it's a KG back in the fold. It's an A Rod type guy who can make a call, which
Hmm.
I'm sure he's done.
Right.
It's all about building that relationship back up. Listen,
Right.
yes, he used to be a Timberwolf, and he has some beef with someone who no longer owns or
Right.
runs the team. His boss is gone. And I thank Glenn for keeping Minnesota, Timberwolves in Minnesota. I personally am
Hmm.
forever grateful to him for that. But with that in mind, I think KG and A Rod can break bread, have some
Hmm.
drinks, and kind of hash it out. It might take a long time, but I definitely expect, at some point in the future there to be a reconciliation. And to be
Hmm.
honest, I don't think it would be something that would be publicly announced. I think it'd be
Hmm.
something that happens at a highly touted game or national TV game. I think it'll just be a shock and it'll be really exciting surprise.
Right. And here's like the last bit that I want to like discuss. Like when like the Wolves were putting out like clips of like like interview with Mark Laurie, A Rod, like this one clip didn't surprise me, but it would kind of surprise like, okay, right off the bat how they're like, we're keeping the team here.
Hmm.
That means a lot. Your first, would you say that was like an interview, or do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I think that was just a way for them to
Hmm.
that's just a big bang. Welcome. We are here. Let's make a pot. It goes back to what I
Right.
said. They're going to create a world class organization, and that includes the fan experience. And I think that was very
Hmm.
strategic. They're very smart, very PR savvy individuals. That was a genius thing to do. Gave me chills, but it's refreshing to know that that is not a talking point. The Minnesota
Right.
Timberwolves are here to stay.
Right. Like I would, the only surprise was like that bang right off the gate was kind of like for me like, okay, you're legit. Now I can trust you guys keeping the team here.
100%.
Yeah, that's like the only like surprising thing. Any other stuff that you want to like discuss that Wolves related?
Um, no, I just thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate you having me on. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And when I'm in Minnesota next, we'll have to hit a game next year and catch
All
up.
right.
And appreciate you having me on.
Anytime. Um, thanks for joining again. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. And best of luck. Love the podcast. Uh, Stay in touch. Hit me up anytime. Happy to pop on anytime. We'll have to get you on the Daily Wolves sometime. And just excited to continue to tune along to what you're doing on Twitter and with the podcast. And
All right.
true pleasure, my friend.
Um, anytime, and make sure to go follow the Daily Wolves on Spotify or wherever you get the podcast. Listen to the podcast. Have a nice one. Peace.